Coach Ryan Martin O'Connor. Man, I can, you'll think back to the first time I met you. Chris, this is why I wanted to have her on our podcast. I've been to, I think, some of the highest level practices in college sports. From my time as a college football sideline reporter, I was there at a Nick Saban practice, of course in basketball, from John Calipari to Coach K to Bill Self. I've seen them all. The first practice I saw Coach Ryan lead was at Ole Miss. I walked out of there that day and I told my wife and daughter, that's as good of a practice as I've ever seen. From an accountability standpoint, from a passion, from a fight, from a encouragement, all those energy, all those things, Chris, all those things we look for, yes. All those things we look for, she has as a leader. And right now she's in charge of the gold standard of cheer on the college level at the University of Kentucky. 24 national titles that program has won, and she's running that ship. So, Coach, thanks for being with us. We want to be coached up by you because I think you're a phenomenal coach. You're a phenomenal person. I learn a lot from you, just getting to know you as a friend of our family. So, first of all, who taught you how to coach? I don't think I've ever asked you that.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. And who taught me how to coach? I would say I've been blessed to have a ton of great coaches in my life. I try to emulate, several of them, but my mom is probably, my biggest influence. My mom has been a coach for about 35 years. She's coaching at Paul Laurence Dunbar High School. She's the most decorated high school coach there, and so grew up with two coaches really because, although my dad wasn't he's not super well known, he was a coach too, and so I always say I didn't have parents, I had two coaches. So I would say them, and then just growing up here in Lexington, just the cheerleading and horse, capital, but the cheerleading capital of the world, I've had just some of the best coaches that are in this industry, be leaders of mine, and I still call on them. And I would say, when you ask how did I learn to coach, I learn every day, every hour. I'm going to be calling people today and asking them for help through situations. So I think that's really important too, is to stay learning.
So was mom a cheer coach?
Yes. Mom is a cheer coach. She still is. She is retired from teaching and from being the athletic director at her high school, but she's still coaching. She's the only coach that Dunbar has ever had. She interviewed for the job when she was pregnant with me, and so I just feel like her high school and just her tenure there at Dunbar has just been my life. I grew up going to practices. Athletes were my babysitters.
No, it's such a neat story. So, as you could probably guess, we have fairly large male audience to this podcast, but it's Coach Me Up. The podcast is Coach Me Up. I'm a sports nerd. My daughter plays field hockey, and I'm trying to learn more and more and more. So I love learning about new things. Coach us up. What Jimmy says you run a great practice. You grew up at cheer practice. Coach us up. What makes a great cheer practice besides the macro stuff of energy and effort? What are the details? Coach me up on a great cheer practice. I can't wait to hear this.
Well, I think it depends on what season you're in. I think each point of the season we have a different goal at our practice. I mean, you said, always having high energy, positive energy, all of those things, holding each other accountable, those things are really important. But I think also what time of the year it is. I think toward the summer, it's more of we're gearing up we're conditioning, we're getting ready for school to start and just everything that we have on our plate. So I do think summer practices look a little bit different than the season that we're in right now. November is the hardest month of the year because we're expected to be at 4 sports, right, that we cheer for. But then we're also a competitive team on our own. So we also have our own workouts 3 times a week, our own practice 4 times a week, our own study hours that we have to complete. So we are athletes in that respect, but we're also expected to be everywhere else. Nationals practices are our focus right now. So those are definitely a little bit more intense. We're looking for perfection, perfect effort. We know we're never going to be perfect, but, I think chasing greatness is the goal, and always striving to be perfect. So then, the Vince Lombardi quote, where we fall will be good if we're aiming for perfection. So I would say our practices right now are definitely a little bit more intense because we're not letting technique things slip. I mean, we shouldn't do that at the beginning, but we're learning things the right way. We're holding our neighbor accountable. We fell, you need to make up 2 right now. Like there's no time to. We're not going to.
So let me hop in there because Jimmy
Yeah.
knows and I don't know. Okay, so Jimmy's like Burke. I mean, but is it? Let's just go hoops. Sport.
Sure.
I'm in the middle of coaching right now. Jimmy obviously is a pro at. Like we got bigs and littles, right? So we start out. There's team warm up, like, but then the bigs will go over here and do big things. The littles will go over here and do little things. Like, do you all have layers of that, or we got this group and that group, and we break up and then we come back together? Is it kind of like that?
Sure, we have positions. Just like when you make up your competition team, you're not looking for the best individuals, but you're looking for the best combination. We're a co-ed team. I think there's also a huge dynamic to coaching a co-ed team. It's not track or cross country where we're co-ed but competing separately. We have to be brothers and sisters, and as a female, coaching males and coaching females together is a very unique dynamic.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got different positions. You've got your guys, and then you've got your mid layers, and you've got your tops and pyramids. So our girls have different roles. You've got your basket girls, your tumbler girls, your elite girls. So we do have different positions.
There we go. Now we're in it.
On the mat, and they've got to keep up too. We've got alternates too that aren't in something right now, and have to continue to keep them motivated and working to be ready. I hope that helps.
Man, it's so much more. That's what I love about it. It's so much more than I would ever know, and the layers of it. Like I enjoy learning about stuff I don't know about. So that's cool. Thank you for that.
Ryan, you were an All-American. You're an All-American cheerleader in college, USA team, head coach at UAB, Ole Miss, now Kentucky. But you told me when you're in high school, and I think this is a great lesson for parents to talk to their own kids about. When you're in high school, you told me you got to the point where you said, every decision I made, I asked myself, is this getting me closer to where I want to be? Talk about that, please, with us.
Yeah, that's a really great memory. Yes, I believe, I think it's really funny how we can, not funny in a haha, but how we can convince ourselves that like we just magically ended up here in these positions that we're in, or if we made if we fall and there's a trap, like I think if you really look back, there's a choice that you made every day that leads you to where you are. I had someone ask me, just as a very well-known high school cheerleader, I was 16 years old and speaking on the Today Show and Fox News about promoting this reality show we were on, and I had someone ask me, a college coach, like, how did you never mess up or like get in trouble? And I'm thinking, I don't know, that wasn't an option, because when a choice was presented to me, I was so focused on, I wanted to be a college cheerleader. I wanted to cheer at a certain place. I wanted to be this type of person. Hey, does doing this after school get me closer to my goal? It was so easy for me to just say no. I think we steer where we stare, and that's why I'm so big on having a goal and having a vision, because if you are just aimlessly waking up and following your feelings, you're going to make horrible choices, and you're going to convince yourself that you didn't make a choice and that it just happened to you. So I've been very big on that since I was 16 years old, I guess, and I'm really grateful for my parents that instilled that, and great coaches, but my parents that instilled that in me. You got to have a goal, and if it doesn't get you closer, it's a real easy nope.
I'm gonna use that at practice today. That one's gonna preach at practice today. I got it. I got an exclamation point afterwards. Now, Ryan, I mentioned my daughter. I have 5 children. I have a daughter and 4 boys. So the 4 boys comes a little easier to me. The daughter, I mean, she's we're kindred spirits. I love her to death. She's my sugar bear. But there's some times where I relate less to her than I do my boys. She's now a freshman in high school. I know that a lot of our audience, even though there's a lot of males, we're raising daughters, right? There's a big percentage of us raising daughters. Coach me up on raising a daughter in today's world of girls searching for affirmation in social media. Coach me up. Give me some best practices on how to navigate that, how to encourage, how to just coach me up there. I need help there.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I mean, obviously, when I was growing up, didn't have to deal with social media, but obviously I have females. I have 22 females that I'm in charge of right now that are dealing with those same things, those same pressures of like they have to be perfect. And somebody said this about me. Man, I just think it's so important not to listen, but to talk, and to have good people that continue to talk to them and to know whose you are and who you are. I think if we start listening to ourselves or listen to the wrong voices, You know, and I told Jimmy that this week. I definitely feel unworthy and not good enough at times, but that's when I start listening, right? That's when I start listening to Twitter, or when I start listening to, you know, even those maybe that didn't do well in my program or didn't, you know, had issues with me, and I start listening instead of start talking to myself. I can't talk to myself unless I'm in the Word, and so that's super important. I would say for teenagers right now, it's new. It's new for all of us. I think just trying to learn. I don't think we'll totally understand how they feel, the pressures that they feel to be so perfect. And it's heartbreaking, really. But I think just continuing to talk to them, to listen to them, and not be super judgmental. You know, a lot of my girls, sometimes they're scared to tell me stuff that they're thinking about, and I'm like, hey, I'm here, good, bad, ugly, illegal, whatever it is. You got to be able to tell me, and my job is to listen and to help guide you. Even if even if I'm like, hey, we made a mistake, but we got to learn through it. Like, I'm on your team. I'm here to support you. I think as parents, that's important. You know, I'm here to guide you. I'm here to point you in the right direction, but not here to judge. But definitely here to tell you when we've made a mistake and need to, you know, take a different path. But I do think that's so important, because I think they don't want to tell us a lot of stuff. They get judged from everywhere. I don't know. I have two sons,
Ryan,
so I am. I'd be anxious and nervous too.
Ryan, you said you tell your kids sometimes for them to understand whose you are and who you are. Expand on that for me, please. I love how you said that. I want to get your take on it.
Yeah, I think just I thrive on words of affirmation. I think just continuing to remind people, that they're a child of God, and that they're made in His image, and like that's who we're supposed to be, and we're created, just to be, to follow in His footsteps and to be close to Him. And I think that's so important. And who they are is not a cheerleader. I think who they are is not the mistake that they made. And that's always something when someone does come to me with like, I've made a mistake, coach, like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, okay, whoa. First off, you don't have to apologize for that. You're not this mistake. That's not who you are. And even in cheerleading, they get so wrapped up with like, this is their identity as a Kentucky cheerleader. And, that comes with that's a heavy crown to wear. And it is in our industry. And so, just reminding them that you're more than a Kentucky cheerleader. I think every athlete needs to hear that. And I try to speak, I try to talk to them and tell them what they need to hear instead of what they want to hear all the time. So that's, I've always been reminded of that.
I want to jump back in real quick.
Yeah.
Brian, let me jump back in real quick. I think there's a lot of people listening to this podcast, or maybe they aren't listening to it. Maybe they will someday. That they struggle big time with making a mistake and feeling like that's who I am. God can't love me. I'll never reach a level of salvation. Help us through that, because I think there's a lot of people that fight that sometimes daily. That I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I can't. I won't. I never will be. Help coach us up on what you would tell a young athlete, or me, if I came to you and said, Ryan, here's what's going on.
Yeah, I think. Jimmy, I think I tell myself that. I think, like I said, I'm human. I'm a human, and I have demons too, and I hear those voices, and I, have to remind myself, whose I am, and I can't do that if I'm not spending time in that relationship. But, man, I just think it's so important, even when I make a mistake, because I make mistakes. I remind my athletes of that. Hello, I'm a human. I'm figuring out how to mother and coach and, just live. And that's okay. I try to be as transparent with them as I am. But I think just, separating ourselves from the action, I think it's only, it's a decision if we make the mistake twice. I think that's really important, and that's when they come to me with like big stuff, like big mistakes, and sometimes there are big mistakes. I mean, college athletes, we make big mistakes, and I have to be that person that's like, okay, we did this. Here's how we're going to move on from it. You're not this, and I'll continue to remind you that. But if you do it again, it's a decision. That's different than making a mistake. So I think that's, that's really important for all young college students to know, all of us to know too. But that's the way that I try to, I just try to tell myself I'm not my mistake, and try to separate emotional thinking from logic thinking. I think I'm two people.
I hope that's pretty good. There's I'm going to add a word, but I can already hear myself.
We're taking notes, Ryan.
Telling the
talk.
boys here tonight. There's a difference between a mistake and an intentional bad decision. Our pastor, our men's pastor at church says there's a difference between sinning and putting sin on your calendar. And he tells men that all the time. Like, hey, dude, I got grace for that. You know, you took too long to look at the girl at the gym. Like, we got grace for that. But hey, you know that trip you take with your boys to Vegas? You may need to rethink that. Like, those are two different things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that always registers with me. And our kids do that, right? Like, I got 5 of them, so they're constantly making mistakes. But you're like, no, you chose to do that. I saw that. You did that one on purpose, and that's a different level of consequence. And we got to have that accountability. You talked about the crown of being a Kentucky cheerleader.
Yeah.
What about the crown of being the head Kentucky cheer coach? And you talked about some of the lies that you allow to creep in from time to time and how you start combating that. Where do you go to fill up your cup? How do you stay sharp spiritually, mentally, physically? Like a 5.0 leader like you, how do you stay filled up so you can pour out to others?
Yeah, I think I struggle sometimes with imposter syndrome, just like anybody else. Like, man, am I really supposed to be here? Is this really, maybe I should start listening to what other people say. I'm not good enough. I didn't do enough as an athlete. I didn't do enough as a coach, or I didn't graduate from here, so I shouldn't be here. And just things like that. Certainly when practices don't go my way or we make a big mistake, like I do start to kind of have a self-pity party, and my husband is my rock, and he's very quick to not let me get down there. I also surround myself with just great friends that hold me accountable, great Christian friends that can be like, oh, okay, you had your 30 seconds of your pity party, stop. It's time to, redirect that. Like, you got to surround yourself. It's the old saying, right? Like, show me your 5 closest friends and I'll show you your future. And that's so true for my husband and my friends. But I think when I'm getting down like that, I've been really into the Bible recap lately. That's been huge for me. It's actually helped me stay focused. I'm such a plan person. I do like a checklist. I'm a very type A, and like that has really helped me stay in the Word probably more than I ever have, and things make sense to me now. Like, even when I'm in church and I'm singing songs and I'm like, oh gosh, now I understand where that story came from now. And it makes a little bit more sense to me because I know like who it was about. I think just like any athlete, like just having a goal, like just being self-disciplined. Like, if I'm not in the Word, if I'm not going to church, if I'm not surrounding myself with the right people, if I'm not taking time to listen to like K-Love or The Message or something in my car, like, am I really filling myself up, with stuff
or the
that's
Coach
going to
Me
be
Up
positive
podcast
that day? Yes, or I listen to you guys on my runs.
There you go.
I do every Monday.
Okay.
Every Monday morning is you guys on my run. Jimmy knows that.
Awesome.
I'm a big Scott Drew fan now.
She's training.
Yeah,
We all are.
Yeah.
She's training for a marathon, CB.
I
She's
am.
going to run a marathon.
Wow.
Helping
Well, that
raise
is
money for the-
a bucket list item that I have yet to check off. One day I think I'm just going to go do it, like zero training, even if I have to walk half
my
of
gosh.
it. I just need to do it. But
That sounds like my husband. That's like what he's going to do for the half marathon. I'm like, are you going to get out there and do it? He's like,
just
I
go
got this.
do it. Yeah.
I got this.
Yeah. Ryan, share with me a scripture or a story from the Bible that impacts you right now or has impacted you in the past, has gotten you through a tough time. I've seen you go through tough times now. I've seen that about you. But I've also seen your fight, your resiliency, your belief in God trumps everything. So give me a story or a scripture that helps you when you get hit in the nose.
Yeah. I kind of brought up, I read Judges recently, and so I did learn more about Deborah, and I think to be a female judge was unheard of. It was so uncharacteristic in that time, judge, not like a courtroom judge, but to be a military leader, to be in a position that's normally held by males. I think I'm in that position, and she was called for that time, and she inspired people, she motivated people, and wanted to, people wanted to fight for her, and I think I found like similarities in that situation. This position has never been held by a female. It's never been held by someone who's married with kids, and I don't take that lightly. I don't take it lightly being on your podcast. I definitely felt a little unworthy and not good enough at times, and I appreciate you encouraging me and just honored to be here, and I kind of leaned on that story just a little bit, and I'm like, well, I think, what a privilege, pressure is a privilege to be able to share my story and to be the first female to do these things. And I try to take that with every decision that I make, every post that I make, everything that a lot of people are looking at me. As far as the scripture, I think one that I've got all over my house, like on anything I've ever printed. I love 1 Corinthians 9:24-27, and that one was like the first verse that really made sense to me. I think growing up with two coaches, sports made so much sense to me. How to be a great athlete made sense to me. And as I was a freshman in high school, through Young Life, we learned about just that verse, and just I'm not shadowboxing. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I'm going to make my body my slave, and I'm going to make sure that I am not disqualified for the prize. And as an athlete, I understood that because I was always taught, don't work so that you're good enough to make the team. You work so hard that they can't have a team without you. You want to be that person that you made the competition, Matt. That's great. You just squeaked by. You were girl number 7 that got to make the mat out of 7. No, you want to work so hard so that there's no way that you could be disqualified for that. And so as an athlete, hearing that verse, I was like, that's what my relationship with the Lord's supposed to be like. I'm supposed to really, really make sure that I am self-disciplined and that I don't want to be disqualified for that prize at the end of my life. I want to make sure that I am doing all the steps, and I'm pouring into this relationship, because that's what it is. It's not just about steps, and I don't mean that, but I do not want to be disqualified at the end of my life. I don't want God to have to be let's take a look again and see which way you need to go. I want him to be no, for sure, come on in. And so I think that verse has always just really resonated with me, I think, as an athlete first before a Christian.
Love it.
I got one more for you. This is
sure.
Thank you for all that spiritual depth. That's good stuff. I can't take notes fast enough. I'm gonna go a little lighter subject, but I'm just really fascinated listening to you talk. So I got to ask you this question: your favorite male and female coach that you like to watch them coach?
Ooh, that's a really good one. Any sport? Doesn't matter?
Any sport. I'd love to get out of your own genre. That way you don't get in trouble. Yeah.
Well, I think Coach Nick Saban is the best of the best. I read lots of his books. I think my mom has become an Alabama fan because she actually didn't speak to me when I transferred from Kentucky to Alabama. It was a very, very bad time. The last dinner before we moved, my dad called it the Last Supper, and he gets all dramatic about it because my mom was very unhappy with me. But I love how Coach Saban talks about choices over feelings. I mean, that is biblical, and that is something that I've lived my life by. So to see what he's done and the process, just loving the process. You have to embrace all parts of the process. You can't, get too high on a day where you have a really good day and then get too low when you have a really bad day. You've just got to love the process for what it is. And so definitely love Coach Saban and try to read and stay up to date with him. As far as a female coach that I really love, my answer might have been different maybe a year ago, but honestly, I'm going to go with Coach Elsie. I think she's in a very, here at Kentucky, our women's basketball coach, I've really tried to lean on her as a female who has taken over a male's program. It was Coach Matthew Mitchell's program for a long time, and I was a huge fan of his. And she's doing things differently, and that's okay. She sat players that are good basketball players, but they weren't doing good things outside of basketball. And I loved that she did that and had the courage to do that and had the courage to stand firm with her decisions and in her faith when people were trying to bring her down because she wasn't winning. She wasn't playing the people that, were good at her sport. But instead, she stood with her principles and her morals and said, nope, we're going to do things the right way or we're not going to do them. And I've been really just encouraged by her, and I love getting to know her. And I reached out to her just honestly after nationals this year and was like, I really think we, should talk more. And so she is probably a female coach that I really like to watch lately.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Ryan, you're in a high pressure position. I mean, I said it earlier. You're the gold standard of of cheer at Kentucky. They're the Alabama in football of Kentucky. How do you handle pressure, and where does your walk with God factor into all that as well?
I'm still learning how to handle pressure all the time, but I think as an athlete, I thrived. I wanted that. I wanted the pressure. I wanted people not to believe in me. I wanted the spotlight. I think I still have a little bit of that, athlete mindset in it. I think just knowing that I am prepared in advance for everything that I'm going to encounter, and like continuing to remind myself, because there are definitely situations that I go through or pressure that I feel, and I'm like, I get that feeling, I'm not good enough. I'm gonna make a mistake. I'm gonna make the wrong decision, and just reminding myself, like, God already knew that this was going to happen, and like, isn't that just a crazy thing? He knew that I was going to have trials here, and He knew that my life prepared me for this job. He, like, everything that I've already been through has prepared me to lead here and to be this person. And when I feel that imposter syndrome speak up, like, I just remind myself, He's not surprised. He knew everything that was going to happen, and He still made, doors open so that I could be here. And I'm not alone. That's another thing. Like, He's with me. He's surrounded me with fantastic people that are going to help point me in the right direction. But He's had a hand in all of this. Like, I didn't do this on my own, at all. He's put, the right people in my life and opened up the right doors to put me here because I'm supposed to be here. And I think just reminding myself of that is really, really, really big for me when pressure starts to feel, like too much. But pressure is a privilege. I've said it my whole life. If you have pressure, it means that you're in a spot where it has been earned. If people are looking to you, I mean, the fact that I get to be on here as a college cheerleading coach, like, that's amazing to me. Thank you. I'm honored with that, and I don't take that lightly, because I know that this podcast, people might not understand competitive cheerleading or college cheerleading and think, what the heck is going on here with this little, blonde girl on the podcast. But, I don't take that lightly. I think that I'm built for this too, and I have, God with me, and I think that's important.
Phenomenal.
Well, you've been great.
Yeah. We've
Thank
taken.
you.
I've taken more notes with you than anybody, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm honored.
Ryan, thank you for. Yeah, thanks for who you are. Thanks for being a friend of our family, and the impact that you have. It's easy for others on the outside to see the impact that you're having. Sometimes when you're the person, you're like, you can't see it, but again, you're as a leader, your toughness, your tenderness, the standard you hold people to every day, how you handle people when they don't meet that standard, how you hold them accountable, all that, God has given you a gift in your heart to communicate really, really well. So any coach listening today, and we have Scott Drew will listen to this, and we have coaches
so
from
cool.
all sports, high levels. They're going to learn. They're going to learn and apply some things from CB's third grade football team to Scott Drew's national championship basketball team, all those levels. So thanks for blessing us with your time today, Coach.